to say.
Sure. So then we're ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Let's rise for the pledge. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Nice.
nice.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag
Of the
of the United States
States
of
of
America
America and to the
and
republic
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. It appears we have the maximum number of participants currently. If you know anybody that's trying to watch via Facebook Live, Denise is doing her best to get that going. There seems to be some problems with Facebook. We are recording this entire Zoom town hall, so we will post the link to it if people can't get on and see it on Facebook Live. Just want to thank everybody for signing in. I think this was an important thing to bring the community into the loop of everything that's going on here in the school district. I want to thank Hank and the administration for agreeing to do this with us, together with the Board of Ed, to bring this information to everybody. We do have an agenda this evening. From my perspective, I just want to send a big thanks again to our teachers, to our staff, to our parents, and to our kids who have been incredible with remote learning. From a community perspective, I can tell you that I've walked a lot here in Brookville, as well as the Birchwoods. And in our community, I really see people that are social distancing, really, being courteous to one another, but keeping their distance and doing the right thing to help flatten the curve here, which has really helped us, with the overall numbers, I think, in our school district. I also want to thank people in the community, the CAJ, for all of the donations that they made to the school, other people who have just really stepped up in this community to donate to our underserved and homeless community here in Jericho, people who need us the most at this time, people who are out of work and really might not have the means necessary to have a meal or to get by, and to see our community come together the way that we have is really a credit. A special thanks and shout out to Margaret Aaron for everything she always does for our community, our students, who live in temporary housing, but are students here in the Jericho School District. So thank you, Margaret, for that. I think as a community in these unprecedented times, and I'm going to turn it over to Hank in a moment to talk to you about what we've been doing here in Jericho, updates that you may have heard about, but we wanted to talk about it here. We will have the chat box open at some point. If there are questions, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. We're going to try to do this entire town hall in approximately 1 hour so that people don't lose interest. And then we have some other speakers that are with us today. And thank you for being here, Kim and Greg, and obviously the entire administration. But I think it was important that you participate as well, so that we can again bring our different aspects of our district up to speed on what's going on. So with that, Hank, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bill. Let me start off also, as Bill did, with thank yous. Firstly, thanking our Board of Education for the support that they've given the entire district to, in effect, do anything that we needed to do to ensure that we're taking care of our kids and our staff. So I thank the board. Also take this opportunity. Again, I've used the analogy that we're building a plane while we're flying at 20,000 feet. Our staff, again, although a learning curve, our staff has really worked so hard and tried so hard to come up to speed. And again, there are still blips. There are still areas that we need to improve. However, after 3.5 weeks, pushing 4 weeks, our staff has done an incredible job. Not only, and frankly, it's not just about providing instruction, but providing support to our student body, and in many cases on an individual basis. So I thank our staff. The administrative team has coordinated and again spent hours and hours to ensure that we are getting better every day at what we're doing. and maintaining our district, our regular district functions in terms of payroll, et cetera. Even in terms of under Ben's leadership, ensuring that we're starting the process of interviewing candidates for potential job openings as we look towards September. A special thanks to our parent community, our school community, for being patient with us and understanding that there are bumps in the road. Hopefully, with every day, there are fewer and fewer bumps in our road as we get better at providing instruction and kid contact, teacher to kid contact. Again, Bill mentioned Margaret Aaron. Our community, and many of you have heard me say this before, when there's a tragedy in our community, when there's a fire or a death, our community comes together to support our community. Margaret Aaron and Denise coordinating an effort to collect food for those in our district that need food, our homeless population, our free and reduced population. The amount of food that we have collected in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week literally fills the faculty cafeteria in the high school. The amount of food is just overwhelming. The amount of generosity is overwhelming, and again, speaks so loudly to who we are as the Jericho school community. A huge thank you to the community for donating so much, supporting those in need, and again, just another shout out to Margaret Aaron and to Denise for all of their work. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on just some overview updates, and then as we go through our presenters, they'll have some more specificity for you, and hopefully blended into our comments will be answers to many of the questions that have been asked over the last 2 days. Firstly, I'd like to start off and talk a little bit about the duration of the closing. The governor yesterday, excuse me, yesterday announced that we were closing through April the 29th. In our contact that we've had with the governor's office, we have tried to, both the superintendents associations, the business officials, PTAs, school boards, school superintendents, have tried to convince him to give us a lengthier school closing so that we can more appropriately plan ahead. His response has been that at this point, he is planning on doing 2-week closures, 2-week closure, 2-week closure, 2-week closure. That's what he's done over the last month. And right now, that's what he's representing to us in the future. I do believe, and I think just general thought in terms of talking to State Education Department, Board of Regents, that the likelihood is strong that we will not be back in school between now and June 30th. We will continue to plan, and frankly, as we look at events, what are the events that we have in April? What are the events we have in May? What are the events we have in June? We have canceled the vast majority of the school district events and recognitions in April and May. We are holding on for, and again, I think one of the things that universally we feel terrible about is our seniors who've lost 40% of their, potentially 40% of their senior year, senior awards, senior prom, senior party, graduation. What we're looking at is, can we, if the date winds up being June 30, can we creatively, either virtually or in reality, look at some of those events and some of the other events in terms of a 5th grade moving up and an 8th grade moving up? Can we look at some of those events, either planning them virtually or possibly planning them in July or August? Again, a lot depends upon how long the closure is, but please know that looking for an opportunity to recognize our seniors is of the highest priority. And whatever we can do, we will try and do. our high school administrators are already on it, and we're already looking at what some potential alternatives might be, given the possibility that we're closed through June 30th. Again, the announcement yesterday about Regents exams being canceled, Barbara will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Again, this is not new territory for the New York State Education Department. They've done this before. What we are basically in overview anticipating is, with the cancellation of the Regents exams, we will look at some local alternative for an end of the year culmination project or culmination take-home exam, and we will develop that in over time if we are closed till June 30th. We have been assured that the superintendent in the past, and we expect as now, will have the authority to award Regents credit, if you will, for the kids who successfully complete those courses, so that the courses and the Regents credits that they're building toward graduation or for graduation this year will be attained through a local approval of the school superintendent. In no way do we see impacting our kids in terms of graduation requirements or in our kids who are freshmen, sophomores, and juniors working toward their Regents diploma. Some other just general information. Many questions have been asked about how come we canceled our spring break. The board and administration, I think universally, we all wanted to have a spring break, but as part of the executive orders that came from the governor's office, basically he has said that we must be in session every day on a go-forward basis, giving up snow days and giving up any vacation periods. The Board of Education felt strongly that we should at least have this coming Thursday and Friday off, and they've authorized us to have 2 days that we're unplugged. But to go into next week, we really don't have a choice but to adhere to the governor's directive. That directive comes with a potentially substantial financial implication if we were to close for the coming week. So basically, you will see all of your friends and neighbors in bordering districts in Nassau County and through New York State being in session from now till June 30th. Some questions have been raised about the use of Zoom. You've all seen reports about Zoom being hacked. We are in faculty meetings, and this evening we are still using Zoom for adults. However, Patrick, our Director of Technology, has put out a memo to our staff asking them to discontinue the use of Zoom in direct contact with students and use one of the 2 other platforms that we're using, using either Canvas or Google as alternate platforms. The other issue that I wanted to address also is, many of the questions we're getting is, my kid in this teacher's class is getting or not getting. It obviously is far more efficient and effective to have those conversations through the chain of command. If there are issues that you're having, that your student, that your child is having with the teacher, we ask that you please get in touch and email your son's, daughter's teacher and rectify any issues that you feel your son or daughter is having. And again, from the teacher, please feel free then to contact building administration and curriculum associates to help you resolve any issues. Again, we want to underline that the chain of command is the best way to resolve any issues that are taking place in the communication between teachers and our children. With that, our next presenter, I'm going to ask Barbara to talk a little bit about what's taking place right now in terms of our virtual instruction. Barbara?
First of all, let me add my thanks to the thanks that Bill and Hank have offered to you. As we worked through a sea change in March, when in 1 week we went from full in-person instruction to remote instruction. I want to thank our teachers, our students, and our families for all of the work that they've done. We're starting our 4th week of remote instruction tomorrow. As the weeks have progressed, we have seen an increase in the amount of live instruction and new instruction that's taking place. Please know that our goal is to ensure that all of our students receive instruction in all of the standards that are required between now and the end of the school year. We've given out devices to any students or teachers who require them to maintain engagement in instruction, and we ask that if anyone is experiencing difficulties with this, please make sure you let us know. We do have central office open on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays between 8 and 1 to service any needs that you might have. As Hank mentioned, our teachers are using Canvas and Google, but they're also using online instruction practices and software that they've used in the past to continue instruction and continue to engage our students. Daily attendance is taken via some type of contact with the student. In some cases, it's as a result of live instruction that's going on between teacher and class, or between teacher and individual students or groups. In some instances, it's attendance being taken as a response in the form of an assignment. And in others, it is by email, because as well as instruction, we're trying to maintain contact with the students in terms of their social and emotional needs. Please know that our administrators are monitoring all the online instruction and student participation. Where we have students who might have disconnected for a day or so, we are contacting families, and we're making direct contact either by teacher or through the guidance office. Counselors and psychologists have also been making contact with students for a variety of reasons, and Greg will go into this a little bit further, but we are ensuring that our students get counseling services, check-ins, and just updates on college admissions and some of the choices that our students need to make. As Mr. Richmond mentioned, many of you have been concerned about regents, and we did receive guidance from the State Education Department today stating that no regents exams will be this year. Students who have completed their units of study can be certified by the superintendent to have completed the course requirements for those regents exams. They also have noted that the checkpoint B language exam, which is the exam that is taken by students usually in their sophomore year or after 3 years of language instruction, those students will be exempt from that test as well and receive credit. We will have, as Mr. Grishman mentioned, some local requirements. We'll be working on those over the course of the next few weeks, and we'll have further information for you about that soon. One last note, the state has also confirmed that lab requirements for science classes have been waived for the period of time that we are officially closed. I also want to note for you that our libraries and librarians have been working very hard to ensure that any students who have needs with regard to research, with regard to just wanting some books to read, they have gone out of their way to ensure that the students have resources that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Greg, I wonder whether you could talk a little bit about transcripts and contact that you've had with colleges and universities.
Sure. So over these past few weeks, I've had a lot of one-on-one conversations with admission directors around the country. So about 24 schools, and arranged therein. And I can tell you that all the things that we're thinking about and the decisions that we're trying to make, the colleges are going through the same exact thing on their end. They are collaborating together, sharing ideas. They're also aware that the majority of kids across the country are going to be in the same boat, more or less, that our students are in, and faced with the same kinds of decisions. Like, how are they going to review applications for future students, for our current juniors? There are going to be some high schools that are going to give pass-fail grading. There are going to be some high schools that choose to give letter grades or number grades. So now the admissions offices are going to be getting all of those different kind of decisions that were made across the country, and they're playing it very safe right now, and they are unanimous in the feedback that I've heard from them on national platforms as well as through my personal communication, that they are not going to hold any grades that happen this year for students. If it's pass fail, for instance, some high schools are deciding that they're not going to hold that against students. They're going to be looking at other measures. So the decisions that we make, one way or the other, are not going to be counting against our students in Jericho. So that's more or less been the conversation on the admissions ends with colleges. On that note, counselors have continued to hold their college meetings with their juniors and their families. So those are being done, online, just like everything else. But we are, encouraging the counselors to have as much communication as possible. And I've been in frequent contact with them, and they're doing that.
Hey, quick question, Greg, if I could.
Yes.
I know a couple people have asked this. So have most of the college admissions offices remained open, business as usual during all of this, even though some of the universities are closed?
Yeah, they're doing business like we're doing business. They're open for business, but they may not be in the building. So I've had a lot of video conferences with people from they're just doing it from home.
Okay, so no real delays in reviewing late decisions on applications or waitlisted people or anything like that. Things are still moving along within the university and college ranks.
Yep, they are totally unaffected in that regard, especially for our seniors. At this point, most decisions are made. They are going to be reviewing waitlist decisions, but not until after May 1st, after they see how many students have chosen to enroll. Many colleges have also extended their deadlines for students to be able to decide until June 1st instead of May 1st under the circumstances.
Great. That was my follow-up question. Are they holding firm to that May 1st date? But you've already answered that. So some schools are extending to June.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hank, before we go to Kim, do you want to talk a little bit or touch on the issue of grading?
Sure. Basically, we have made a decision that we will use third quarter grades and use the work that kids have cumulatively put together up until the point that we went virtual, with an underline that we will use the grades in a significant do not harm manner. So in effect, if we look at those grades and look at the work that kids have done through the end of the third quarter, we will ensure that grade for the third quarter is helpful to our kids and supportive of our kids and is not in any way detrimental to the overall grading. Per some of Greg's comments and in talking to many of the superintendents in the state of New York, there appears to be a variety of methods that are being employed. Probably the one that I'm hearing the most is pass-fail. And again, I think what's important to understand is, as Greg outlined, is on a kid's transcript. So as we look at juniors, or even look at sophomores, their transcript is going to show one grade at the end of the school year. And again, once we know that school is closed, we will have to make a determination on how we'll look at the fourth quarter, how we'll look at a final project or a final take-home exam, and how all of that will come together in determining what that singular grade is on a transcript. And again, the philosophy will hold no matter how we do this between third quarter, fourth quarter, and final grade with an understanding that stressful times, high anxiety times, and we'll do everything we can to support our kids in putting together that final transcript, Bill.
Thank you, Hank.
Now I'd like to ask Kim to spend a couple of minutes talking about special ed services as we currently stand, and potentially what special ed services might look like as we progress through the spring.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. First, I want to thank the Board of Education and Central Administration for really providing me with whatever support I need to make it happen for our students. And I think the two main key words in regards to this online learning are really collaboration and creativity. I think with the collaboration and creativity of the staff and even parents involved and students, we're really doing a great job. I've been involved with other directors in Nassau County and Suffolk County, and I think you know, in Jericho fashion, in some ways, we are moving forward faster than some of the other school districts. And so really, with that said, with collaboration and creativity between the teachers, staff, parents, students, we are trying to follow student IEPs as close to as possible in terms of online learning. You know, obviously our co-teachers, our resource room teachers have been doing an amazing job with many of our students. I've been hearing a lot of great feedback. Speech services, we've kind of are moving towards more of a face-to-face. The new coined term is teletherapy, which actually in looking at different student needs and family needs, it's a combination of face-to-face through video conferencing. There might be some activities involved with that, as well as some telecommunication between parents and therapists, just to you know, move our students along. So our speech therapists are really doing a nice job, you know, utilizing that combination. And again, I think the key is really making this work is trying to, once again, in the worlds of special education, is to not have one size fits all and really differentiate and support our families and our students as, you know, looking at them as individuals. Our occupational therapy services and physical therapy services, we use agencies. And so moving forward, we are looking at adding some occupational therapy where it makes sense for the online teletherapy. Physical therapy has been a little bit more difficult because many of our students that currently receive physical therapy services need a lot of hands-on things like, you know, stretching, where the therapist is actually, you know, hands-on with the student. But our therapists have had contact with parents, you know, even if it was, you know, just a quick phone call and a check-in. And certainly if anyone has specific questions, they can reach out to me. Just in terms of, you know, small population of students who were new referrals to the Committee on Special Education. Unfortunately, we can't move forward until we have our full battery of testing completed. So those will be our first priorities once we're back in the building to move forward and finish testing our new referrals through the Committee on Special Education and you know, have meetings and get that moving forward. There are students who were up for what we call a triennial or reevaluation, which happens every 3 years. So again, you know, where we didn't have the testing completed, what we're doing is we're having annual review meetings without the testing, just to get some sort of, you know, IEP services. So we, in terms of scheduling for next year and classes and things like that, you know, having that done for students. And certainly if we have to reconvene our Committee on Special Education to review students, we certainly can do that. And then once we're back in the buildings again and we get all our testing done, we will once again have a CSE meeting, review all of our testing, and then make decisions based on the new data as to what students may or may not need in their individualized education plans. Our CSE meetings have been, we've been doing them through Google Meet. Heard very, very positive things, where we have our staff, everyone's online, our parents are joining, and we're having some really great meetings that way. So we are planning on finishing out the year. If we're still in this position, having all of our annual review meetings typically are done before June 26th. So if you haven't heard from anyone yet, you will. And that will be the same for our 504 meetings. We will be having them through Google Meet as well. Let's see what else. In terms of summer, some of our students in our individualized development and skills classes continue over the summer, as well as we have a English as a new language program, Jumpstart, and we have a ELA AIS program for children entering grades 3, 4, and 5 through building level recommendations. We are planning for all of that to happen. It's in the works. And until we hear differently, hopefully we will be back, you know, getting some services and supports with kids that we typically do this for every summer. If things change, our plan B will really, again, be looking at continuation of online learning. I think I covered everything.
Thank you, Kim. Kim, have you heard anything from our academy students at all, families?
The academy students are doing the same exact thing as our other students are doing. They're you know, online. They're getting FaceTime with their teachers. You know, we have these extra social emotional support. So things are moving along.
That's great. Thank you, and thanks for everything you're doing to navigate this, which is obviously, you know, a little more difficult in your realm. Just so folks know, before we get to Victor, Hank, people, we have over 100 people that are currently watching. The chat box is open. If people want to ask any questions, they can start filling those questions in now, so that we can, you know, potentially get to as many as we can before we're done.
Right. I just I want to, you know, of all the balls in the air that we're all juggling, Kim probably has the greatest complexity in terms of what she's dealing with in ensuring that we're taking care of the needs of hundreds of our kids. And I just also use this opportunity to thank Kim for doing an unbelievable job in ensuring that, to the best of our ability, given the situation, that our kids' needs are being taken care of today, and that they will be taken care of in terms of planning for summer and fall. So Kim, on all of our behalf, thank you for all that you are doing.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for their support.
Good. With that, Victor, I wonder whether you can touch on a couple of things for us.
Sure, Hank. I know you wanted me to discuss food service. We are providing food service, 2 days worth of meals on Mondays and Wednesdays, and a weekend's worth on Fridays. We're doing two different aspects to the operation. One is delivering meals actually to where our homeless students are in various motels in the district. And then we're also providing a grab and go option for our free and reduced students throughout the district, where they come to the front circle. We have 2 days worth of meals prepared in a bag, and it's basically grab and go. And I do want to thank our food service workers who have been coming in on these days and working very hard to make sure that this process gets done. And of course, I know you thanked her before, but Margaret Aaron has been a big help with the homeless students and assisting in that effort. So thank you to her as well. The other piece was childcare for our healthcare workers and our first responders. We partnered with Syosset School District and Scope. They have a program there, and I believe Denise sent out an email to parents. It's on our website as well. If you were interested and you fall into that category, that we did partner with the Syosset School District.
Victor, some questions have come up in the chat room.
Sure.
Relative to the impact of the governor's budget, and some statements that have been made regarding mid-year aid cuts, and aid cuts next year. I wonder whether you could just spend a minute or two and talk about your analysis of where we are and what that potential impact might be.
Sure. Let me start off by saying what I said the last time, that our state aid, fortunately in Jericho, is a very small percentage of our total revenue. It represents
or unfortunately.
Or unfortunately, it represents about 5% of our revenue. We budgeted $6 million for next year. I would anticipate, if nothing changed at all, we would probably get $6.5 million. So we do have room there in the event there are some mid-year cuts totaling about 10%, which would be pretty significant to see a 10% reduction in state aid. So we have some breathing room on the budget side with respect to state aid. But again, unfortunately, from what the governor said, was he's going to do this piecemeal as the year progresses next year, which is very difficult for districts that are dependent upon state aid. Some districts are 75% dependent on state aid for their revenue. So in order to be in that situation would be extremely difficult. My concern long-term is the 21-22 school year, which is the budget cycle for next year. And health insurance costs are obviously going to increase a year from now. The TRS, the ERS will likely spike because of the stock market. So while we have
teacher retirement system, employee retirement system.
Correct. While we have some short-term issues, I think we're okay now, and the budget numbers that we provided last week, again, it's the following year that's going to be challenging.
Thank you, Victor. Again, kudos to Victor. Again, one of the things that leaves us in a position that's very different than most districts in New York State is that Victor has been involved in planning and planning our budget in literally a 5-year segment. So in that long-term planning, if something catastrophic happens, and again, the situation that we're currently in, that 5-year plan really takes us to a position where we don't have to worry about program cuts or staff cuts. We can, again, through Victor's leadership, we can ensure that programmatically this district will look the same next year as it will the year after this. So again, congratulations, Victor, to the work that you've done in taking care of our 3,200 kids and ensuring that for the coming 5 years, our kids will have the same breadth and quality of program that they currently have in place.
Thank you.
Again, a couple of questions that have come through talking about, weighting and what will final exams look like, how will they be weighted, what will the end of the year look like. Again, right now, while we're looking at the probability of being closed through June 30, there are decisions that we'll make as we go through the month of April and May in terms of what fourth quarter will look like, and how that will be graded, how final projects will be graded, and how final exams. None of those decisions are in the process of being finalized yet, and we will inform our high school parent community. Our high school staff will be part of that process, and we will keep you posted as we determine that. Our middle school, we have made a decision that it's in the best interest of our middle school kids for middle school classes that they will be pass-fail, and I will make the assumption that if we go into fourth quarter, that will be the case. That will be the case as well. Some questions have come up in terms of covering the curriculum, especially in places where the curriculum is spiraled. For example, in math, in many cases, where the curriculum is spiraled. Again, if we are closed through June, it will be our goal to ensure that as much of the curriculum, all of the curriculum, will be covered in some shape, manner, or form, so that our kids will be prepared to re-enter school in September.
Hank, there was also a question about the checkpoint A exam for languages. The guidance came out this afternoon from the State Education Department that said the students can be made exempt from checkpoint A upon local decision. And obviously we will be discussing that very soon, and we will get back to parents with that checkpoint A and the ways in which we will determine that.
Great. Also, some questions that came up yesterday in terms of might the state make kids take Regents exams in August? No, that is not in the realm of possibility. What might summer school look like if kids want to take summer school? Again, those are questions and issues that while we're in the first week of April, we won't deal with until we get into further into the school year and have some sense of a return date. Another series of questions that I saw today talked about, well, when we come back, what will school look like when we come back in September, if we come back in September? What will social distancing look like? Again, we are right now and will continue to follow very closely the guidance that we receive from the medical professionals that work in the Nassau County Department of Health and the New York State Department of Health. And we will follow those directives in terms of any accommodations that we need to make. One of the things that I just saw before we came online was an email from one of our colleagues who deals with health and safety. And he pointed out to us that today we had the highest number of deaths in New York State than we've had on any other day. There were 731 deaths as of 5 p.m. tonight in New York State, with 934 new confirmed cases in Nassau County. So I think there are a couple of things with that reality. Obviously, the challenge of the next week, 2, 3, 4 is definitely upon us. Underlining the need for us, and I think Bill talked about that at the very beginning, social distancing is helping, and we need to emphasize, and as we wish our parent community and our staff members, we wish them good health, we also encourage that they now follow those directives of social distancing right to the letter, so that we can hopefully start reducing the number of deaths that we're seeing and the number of confirmed cases that we're seeing. As the next couple of weeks unfold, we will keep you well apprised of any decisions that we get from the governor's office, from the state education department, as well as any decisions that we make relative to how we're dealing with courses and grading within the Jericho School District.
Hank, one of the questions in the chat box was regarding the budget vote and when that will be. The only thing we know at this point is that it will definitely not be May 19th, and the governor said it would be sometime after June 1st. We have no specific date at this point. As soon as we find out, we will obviously let the community know at that point, and how the budget vote looks, quite honestly. What changes are going to have to take place.
Yeah, I think one of the last conversations that I heard around budget vote, the end of last week, had talked about them establishing a date in June, possibly the third Tuesday in June. And again, this is all supposition that the school districts would send out applications for absentee ballots. People would mail back their application for absentee ballots, and they would then receive an absentee ballot. Again, that is not definite. but that was the last conversation that I heard out of the governor's office on, I think it was either Thursday or Friday of last week.
Victor,
Bill,
do we
can I-
have any, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Hey, Barbara.
I'm sorry, Victor, do we have any calculation of what that would cost if we have to first mail out to, I assume every registered voter or maybe every resident? I'm not sure.
It's,
An
it's,
application for an
Barbara,
absentee ballot.
yeah, Barbara, the discussion I heard was that we would have to mail that out to every resident, in effect, using our newsletter mailing list.
So do we know what the cost of that would be?
The mailing itself would be tens of thousands of dollars.
And then mailing a second, because then you're mailing them the ballot itself.
Correct.
We probably have more responses than ever before because people who never thought about voting are now receiving an application for a ballot.
Correct.
We don't know.
Yeah, it'll be unique, that's for sure.
And
then-
look, obviously, how this unfolds will be a directive coming from the governor. So we will have no choice but to follow that to the letter of the law. I know that Chris and Ingerman Smith has been directly involved in those conversations with the governor's office, and expect that we'll get some heads up from Chris very shortly in terms of what that's looking like.
Correct. The earliest the vote could go forward, according to the executive order, is June 1st. That's clearly not happening. The discussion of it being a mail-in ballot has actually been under consideration for about 2 weeks at this point, Hank. We do have sources in Albany that will give us the word as to exactly when it's going to be. But it's going to be, I'm telling you, Victor, and you're seeing it, it's going to be very cumbersome for you guys.
Yeah.
Well, and then the staffing just to count the votes
Sure.
would be tremendous. I mean, who would be allowed to do that?
Yeah, Barbara, there's several other questions relative to that. Until we have more information, we're all kind of just guessing at this point. And I know a few people asked a few questions regarding that same point you brought up. But again, until we hear something from the governor's office and SED, where we could, look at it and say, okay, this is what we have to do. We're just all guessing at this point.
I think there were just two other quick questions that I could provide answers for. There was a question about students who are in Regents classes that would count toward an advanced Regents designation, and the same requirements would hold for those classes as hold for all other Regents classes. And then there was one other question about what's going to happen with the speaking portion of the AP exam. And the AP foreign language exam this year has 2 speaking prompts.
Great. Bill, some closing comments, please.
I'm looking at a few more questions just because people have, well, let's see. I mean, a lot of these we can't answer, Chris. So it says, for example, there's a lot of questions about the, election and ballots and the budget. And we don't really, we don't have a lot of control of that. This says, question for Chris Powers. Are we able to save on mailing ballots, and for those parents in the school district, opt out of via electronic method? I think the answer to this, there's 3 or 4 questions about Board of Ed seats and the budget and how that vote's going to happen and how you prevent fraud. And I think, Chris, you'd probably chime in here and say that these decisions are not really germane to each individual district, that these are going to be decided by Albany.
Yeah, the mechanics bill will be laid out for us by the governor's office, and then we will get out another letter to you guys laying out exactly what you have to do, what the procedures are. There have to be new notices that will go out. And basically, we're going to take that information and to make it as clear as possible. But very simply, we have to do what we're told to do. Elections can be very sensitive. You have to watch out for fraud, obviously. And, it's something that we cherish, which is the accuracy of our elections. So we're going to follow to letter of law exactly what he tells us to do.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of questions here about summer school. Hank, you answered that. Is there going to be driver's ed this summer?
In my backyard. Obviously, we're hoping that July 1st might be a date for reopening. But I think many of you, again, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the start date and the reopening and what reopening will look like. One of the, I think I had shared with the board and the administrative cabinet, Rutgers University this week announced that they are closed up tight, doing virtual communication and virtual learning through August the 18th. So again, there are so many question marks. Do we open on May 1st, May 15th, June 1st, July 1st, August 1st? Again, there are so many issues in terms of what does the infection rate look like? What are the medical experts in the Department of Health telling us? We're really in limbo, waiting for information, and we'll make decisions as things become clearer. Once we know that there's a reopening date, once we know that we're closed through a certain date, it'll give us the opportunity to do a better job in solidifying our plans.
All right, I know there's been a number of questions, and Barbara Barrow, I guess I'll throw this to you. I mean, I kind of know the answer. People are inquiring about the level of online teaching, virtual teaching, and things of that nature. And I know every day we're trying to do more, and we went from being in school to a few days later, online remote teaching. I would like to say to everybody that's out there, we have a lot of teachers here in Jericho, and we have a lot of young teachers, and we're really proud and supportive of our staff. And I want everybody to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of our teachers are home with their kids, and they're doing everything they can to educate our kids in this district and still be parents. Remember, their kids are usually in school and they're here teaching. Now they're trying to teach our kids and trying to take care of their own kids at the same time. And that's a burden or an expectation that they really didn't anticipate and didn't have much time to plan for. So I'm incredibly proud of our teachers and what they're doing, but I'd ask everybody to be cognizant of the challenge that is for so many of our.
I would underscore that. I think our teaching staff has done a remarkable job when you look at the short period of time in which we really had to prepare for this. I do know that there are teachers who have utilized some flipped classrooms and other methodologies that this was a very natural transition for them. For some of us, it wasn't quite as natural, and we're learning as we go, but I think we're getting better every single day. And I would ask that if there are particular issues in any one building or with any one department, that you please contact your curriculum associate or your principal, and we will certainly work with you to ensure that our students are getting quality experience.
Thank you, Barbara. Again, to underline Bill's point, we've gotten feedback from our staff, and probably between 10 and 20% of our staff are also dealing with the challenge of providing online instruction while having both preschool and elementary school kids at home with them. And I can only picture what that must look like in trying to be online for X number of hours today while juggling preschool kids and school age kids who are online as well. So again, I especially appreciate those staff members who are dealing with the challenges of young kids at home. And I can only relate in terms of stories that I've heard from some of our staff, and very frankly, some of our parents, some of our relatives as well.
The other thing is, and again, we don't really talk about this much, but like everybody else, we have faculty, we have staff, teachers that have family and loved ones on the front line, and the proverbial front line is in the hospital, in law enforcement, fire departments. This is a battle that none of us really ever expected, and I just think we're doing an incredible job of trying to educate our kids and balance the well-being of our immense staff and all of the things that we deal with individually. Everybody who works in Jericho is dealing with the same things. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't know somebody who hasn't tested positive, or somebody who hasn't been in the hospital, or got fit, somebody who passed away. You know, these are incredibly trying times, and again, our staff is doing everything that they can. I know there's questions about more technology, and every day we're trying to do more to make the educational process better. But at the end of the day, we're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to support our community, support our you know, our students, our parents, and all of our faculty in these really difficult times. And with that, I don't want to forget, so I'm just going to jump ahead. Denise Nash, I don't say enough about you, but just to quote Jerry Maguire, you are my minister of Quam, which means that you're available to this district 24/7, and people should know that you have 2 kids at home as well that are trying to be educated, and that you're trying to take care of, and a family, and you know, no matter what we ask, no matter what Hank asks, or the Board of Ed, you know, you're always there. You're always going above and beyond to help the communication between this district and our parents and our students, you know, go smoothly. And I can't thank you enough. From the bottom of my heart, really, a special shout out to you for everything you do every day.
Ditto, 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 ditto.
Thank
And
you.
just, you know, and please know, based upon the 2 kids that she has home, Denise has been at work every day. Bill, on a serious note, again, we're all hearing about staff members, the families of staff members, district residents who have been either tested positive or showing the symptoms of the coronavirus. It is all around us, and is really a note of you know, pay attention to what's really important. Kindness and sensitivity are the words that come to mind based upon what's going on next door within our workplace. We're trying to do the best we can, and within a climate of people being sick in our households, in our friends' households, in our relatives' households, in our communities' households. And again, in my 52 years in this business, there's nothing that has ever been close to what we're dealing with on this day-to-day basis.
And you know, just to add to that, Hank, I mean, we don't talk about it. We've lost some people in this community to this deadly disease, and it's impacted, you know, some of us more profoundly than others. And as a community, we say a prayer and extend our condolences to all of the Jericho community that have lost somebody dear to them. It's very, very sad, and that's the big picture at the end of the day. You know, we're doing our best to educate kids, but you know, we're also dealing with an incredible pandemic that is killing people on a daily basis, and we're not immune to that here in Jericho. And you know, for those who know somebody out there that have lost a loved one, our sincere condolences.
And Bill, on that,
I just want to go back for a second, Hank. Barbara had asked a question, and I just wanted to be clear, because we talked about next Thursday and Friday, and I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that the board has requested and approved that really we be closed next Thursday and Friday. And when push comes to shove at the end of the day, Chris, I mean, I know that from a legal perspective, you don't love this, but the truth is while we appreciate everything the governor is doing, and his daily work is incredible, on this particular issue as it pertains to our community, we think he's wrong, and we think it's necessary for us to take a time out and not have our kids come to school next Thursday and Friday. It's Holy Thursday, it's Good Friday, it's Passover, it's a 4-day weekend. It's time for us to just kind of take a deep breath. And there are potential ramifications that go along with that, and the Board of Ed and the administration is aware of that. I know this is public, and you probably didn't want me to go here, but that's the reality. That's where we're going here in Jericho, to protect our kids and our community, and we think our kids deserve that time off.
I think the public needs to know that, because there may be financial ramifications. You know, we made the choice knowingly, and we said, well, paying teachers for days that their contract says they're on vacation versus maybe not receiving state aid for those days. We had to balance that, and we looked at that, and that's assuming that we know what the state penalty will be for being closed. We don't really know, but it's a decision we made, believing that it's the right thing for our teachers and students.
There was, again, I will tell you that we so appreciate the board's making that decision. The feedback that we received from our community, from our teaching staff, was overwhelmingly, thank you. We really need a 4-day period of unplugging. So again, this Thursday and this Friday and Saturday and Sunday, having those 4 days to unplug is so appreciated by everyone on staff, by our kids, and by our community. We thank the board for having the courage to make that decision. And we really appreciate, and we all will appreciate, having an opportunity. It has been incredibly stressful, anxiety-producing time for all of us. And it's not just been the 6 or 8 hour or 10-hour workday. It really has been 24/7 for many of us over the last 3 weeks. And knowing that we have an opportunity to unplug for 4 days this coming weekend is just nothing could be better right now. And we all thank the board for the courage and the sensitivity to have made that decision.
Thanks, Hank. So I think with that, we'll kind of come to a close here. Wishing everybody who celebrates either of the holidays this weekend a happy holiday. These are not holidays as we've grown to know them, both from a family perspective or a religious perspective. But we will all get through this. We will get through this together. We have an incredible community here, an incredible team, an incredible district. Thank everybody for logging in, and wishing everybody an incredible 4 days of just relaxation and family time, and hope the weather holds up for all of us so that we can all get some fresh air and just take a deep breath. So wishing you all good health, and stay safe out there.
Thank you, Bill.